when you go and do this more active research then, and you're reaching out to people like the fire stations in Nebraska and
Mhm.
saying, hey, can I come and hang out? What's your approach for that? Because I know a lot of writers, as you've said, are introverts. And the thought
Yeah,
of just reaching out to total strangers and saying, can I come join you, is a little bit terrifying. I mean, just the thought of it for me, my brain is like exploding at the thought
yeah.
of it. So, what's your approach and what would your advice be for someone who'd like to do that, but is
hmm
terrified of the concept?
Two things. I may be extroverted, but I'm also terrified of it. I just, I've kind of gotten this attitude of like, I can be terrified for a short while and do it, and then it will be over, or I can be terrified for a long while because I didn't do it. And I have cold call places. I don't think that works all that well. And especially if you're looking for anything where you need to get into an office or something, it's hard. People don't want to let you in. I drove 5 hours to get a police station I could ride along with, because I've done that as well. I've actually ridden with four different police stations now. None of them any closer than 3 hours to my home because
Wow.
they're so closed. And I think if you call and it doesn't work, going and knocking on doors is a better bet. But honestly, I've only had really good luck with that once. And that was my local fire station is a volunteer station and they are amazing. But so many places are just like, no, we don't do that. Um, One place told me I could absolutely do a ride along if I was a student getting a particular degree, taking a particular class. So I was like, yeah, I'm not getting a whole degree to come ride with you for a day. But what I've actually found works really well and is probably just easier for the terror is we actually don't know who we know. And so just start talking to your friends and the people you know, post online. I need to do a ride along with this. Who knows this? The fire station that I rode with for a week, one of my coworkers at the time, I was just like, hey, does anybody, like, I'm struggling. I've knocked on all the local doors. You know, I'm not going to drive 3 hours to knock on somebody's door to get rejected, you know? And she said, hold on. The police chief lives in my building. Let me see. And she asked the police chief and he asked the fire chief. And the next thing I knew, like it took 8 months to get to her. And it took me 8 months of knocking on doors. It could have been much faster if I'd reached out to my friends up front. So I learned a lot researching how to research. So yeah, she set it up and within a couple of days I had an invite and I was just like, great, when do I have a free week? And I stayed overnight with her a couple nights, but I got to live in the fire station. I rode with every shift. They did extra trainings for me. They were like so excited. Um, and then the police ride alongs that I've gotten because I've known people. I have not had any success knocking on doors or cold calling anyone for that. So absolutely, like, I didn't know, but a lot of people, and especially like readers, if you're already a published author and you have that, your readers want to help you. And one of my readers put me in the police station right near his home.
That's
And
so
that was
cool. Uh,
wonderful.
yeah, it is a
Yeah.
case of like, you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you if you just
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah. And I'm surprised how many don't want credit in the book. They're like, do not put me in here. Yeah.
Really?
Well, I will also say I've talked to bomb experts and I got talked through how to get somebody who is living under an alias into a position as a police officer, how to pass that background check illegally. And he
Wow.
was like, you cannot, but he ran one of the largest states background systems. So he taught me through, like, if you want to get past me, you know, here's what we're not checking. Here's what you would need.
I'm
Yeah.
not surprised he didn't want to be in the acknowledgements. I'm really
No,
not.
right? The bomb guy didn't either. Another really good way to get people is to go to conferences. And so a lot of writing conferences are craft writing conferences, but there's a good handful of writing conferences out there that are action research conferences. So I've done Writers Police Academy, I've done Authors SWAT Academy. Actually, I taught at SWAT Academy and I've actually helped run Authors Combat Academy. So those were 3-4 day conferences where you're talking to police officers, forensic scientists, military experts, you know, crime scene investigators. And that's the kind of thing, like, I get it's not like an office. If you wanted to know like about training horses, there's not that many writers conferences for training horses that I can recommend. They might exist, but you don't know who you don't know, to the point where I decided to write a book where they find a schematic when they've got an old plantation and they're restoring it. And they find a schematic in the walls. I hated history in school. I don't know how to do this. I don't know why I decided this was the book. But I started asking around. One of my best friend's fathers, who works for a chain restaurant. So that's how I knew him. It turns out he actually works for the owners of a handful of the local chain because they buy plantations and restore them for education. And they hired him as a restorer, and he only works for the restaurant when he's not restoring buildings for them. And I loved him. He was like, oh, I'm probably the top restoration knowledge guy, you know, in the southern states. And I'm like, so like in the world, like there's nowhere else we find this kind of building, but thanks for downplaying. And I got tours and I got recording. He handed me books. So there's really a lot you can do, and you probably know a lot more people than you know. And so that's the easier way to do it. If you're a writer and you've got a readers Facebook group, I would start there. Like, hey, I'm really trying to do this. Does anybody know somebody who's willing to give me a tour or talk to me on the phone? You know, be clear about what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed when like working with beta readers or interviewing people or like say doing research is be really specific, because if you're vague, then they're not going to be able to help you as much. You need to know what you want to get out of that other person first.